Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Exciting time of year. We've got the extension deadlines coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about those, some deals getting done around the NBA. Plus, we've got the NBA season officially kicking off tomorrow. It is a great time of year. I'm Trevor Lane, joined as always by Keith Smith. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm fired up, man. We got extensions coming in now. We had a lot of transactions over the weekend. His team set up their rosters. We've got a packed show today. We've got multiple extensions to talk about. Fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get a couple breaking news drops in here
Let's
as we
go.
record. For posterity, it's about 3:15 Eastern while we're recording this. A rookie scale extension deadline is 6 p.m. tonight. We're going to get into different extension deadlines and why some guys can extend now and later and other things, educational. We're going to talk about all the movement that happened around the league over the weekend. And then we've got some opening night medical updates, injury updates, and, just a ton of stuff to get into. But I think we know where we got to start this one.
Absolutely. We got to start it right here.
Fire! Fire!
The Kevin Cannon lives. That's right. Kevin Durant agreeing to a 2-year contract extension with the Houston Rockets. It comes in at about $90 million, which is less than the max that he could have gotten. And that could open up some flexibility here for Houston. What do you think about about this deal? Do you like this deal for Houston? Again, 2 years, $90 million. Essentially in total, I believe it's about $30 million less than what he could have gotten had he done a full max deal here.
Yeah, you're right on it. He was eligible for a little bit more than 120 million by projections for next year. Now, going to come in at 90 million. So what we're going to see with Kevin Durant and the Rockets in this case is this gives them a little bit of flexibility as they go. And I think KD at age 37 is fully realizing he's now, as I believe Shams when he reported, this will now put him as the highest earner in terms of NBA salary and NBA history. LeBron is not that far behind him. So when LeBron signs this coming summer, assuming he does, he'll probably take back the top spot. But it just gives you a sense of that 30 million. I don't know that Kevin Durant's fully going to be missing it. That's easy for me to say there, but yeah, just ahead of LeBron. Yeah, 15 million ahead of LeBron. I think LeBron will get 15 million if he wants to play next year. Just a guess. I think he'll get at least the mid-level.
I would assume.
Yeah, right. So in this case, and you had the Rockets salary sheet up there. If you're watching with us on YouTube, they've got some other stuff going on. They've got kind of now the core guys locked in: Durant, Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, Steven Adams, veteran guys that were added. Clint Capella, another veteran guy. Reed Shepherd's under contract, but Tari Eason looming, extension eligible. We'll see. Maybe we get news on him here while we're recording today, but this gives them flexibility. And then Amin Thompson looming in a couple years. A new deal for him will kick in. So I think KD taking less just gives the Rockets that flexibility. And I think for him, it's a matter of recognizing, hey, getting every last penny is cool, but I would really like to win a title. And the best way to win a title, take a little less, give the Rockets the ability to put a better team around me, and we move forward. So I think this is a really good piece of business for both Durant and the Rockets.
Well, I think the biggest criticism that Kevin Durant has heard, and we know KD is a very online guy, but the biggest criticism that goes around on social media about Kevin Durant is that the titles that he won was with the Golden State Warriors and with the Warriors team that was already really good. So he doesn't get as much credit. If he were to add a title as a Houston Rocket, I think that just goes that much further to cement KD's legacy. And it would have, I would assume we would hear something from KD on social media about shutting people up that complain that he could only get it done with that absolutely stacked Warriors team. So I think winning a championship with Houston is certainly the goal here, certainly the motivation here for him to take less. But when we're looking at as a market here, we've seen the guys we've talked about them being, all-star adjacent, kind of getting squeezed a little bit. We'll talk about some of the extensions here. They're not getting the max or near max deals that they maybe would have gotten under the old collective bargaining agreement. Could this also, Kevin Durant, as an aging but still very productive star, getting a non-max deal here, could this be a sign of the way this is going to go, where you're in their prime max guys, your Lukas, your Giannis's, your Jokic's, those guys just here, take the max, no question. But the aging guys, do you think this will set the precedent and they will no longer be taking those full max deals, just like the guys who are not quite that superstar tier are no longer getting those max deals either?
Yeah, I mean, we saw after years and years of saying, if I'm not going to take less than the max, LeBron took a little less last season. So I think we're in a spot where, yeah, maybe these guys are starting to come around to, all right, hey, it's, I've made a lot of money. Making that much more is just not worth it compared to being able to contend, being on a better team around me. I don't think we're going to see guys all of a sudden start taking mid-level or taking minimum contracts. But yeah, if you can give up 10, 15 million in a season and you're still getting 40 to 50 million, it's probably not the end of the world for you to step down a bit from that max deal, because it does put a better team around you. So I think we're in a place where I don't want to go too far with it yet, because we're also not. How many of these guys are still playing at a true max level?
Sure.
You've seen with James Harden, right? That's come down off of max because he's just not a max guy anymore. He's still very, very good and still worth a ton of money, but that's the difference. But yeah, I think when we get there, the other thing for Durant too, that player option in 27, 28, we are fully entering. He's going to be with Houston the next couple of years. And then I think we are fully into the year-to-year mercenary phase for KD, where it could be, to quote the old Westerns, have gun will travel. Like it feels like KD is, might be like, oh, you need the, what is this thing? Easy money sniper. You need that. Let's go. I'm ready to go.
Wow. I mean, KD is gonna mosey on over to the Houston Rockets and bring his 6-shooter with him. And I mean, look, I do think though, like this being a essentially 3 years he's committing with Houston. Obviously, that player option at the end of it could change that. Maybe it's only 2 years. But I think Kevin Durant is looking at this saying, this is where I'm going to finish up my career.
Yeah.
And make the most of it there in Houston.
I think that's the intention, but I'm not going to rule out in a couple of years he doesn't, mosey on over to San Antonio and pair up with the big fella and get it done that way. Maybe.
How about somebody mosey on over to the Eastern Conference for a change? Come on.
Yeah, well, that's a different story altogether. But yeah, we'll see if that's the way that goes down. I mean, we've heard Kevin Durant to the Wizards for about, I don't know, feels like 12 years now, and it's just never come to fruition. Maybe it eventually will.
All right, let's jump over to another extension that got done, and that is and just happened recently. Christian Braun gets a deal done with the Denver Nuggets, 5-year, $125 million. This seems to slot right in with most of these guys. When you look at you look at Josh Giddey, what he got, the Jonathan Kuminga, this deal's right in there where teams aren't really wanting to go above that $25 million per season average annual value. So on this 5-year deal, slots right in with that. And the Denver Nuggets bring on or keep a guy that has become a very, very important part of their rotation.
Yeah, big time. He is the one young player that's really popped for Denver in the Jokic era of the team. They've drafted quite a few other guys, and some of them have potential. We'll see if Peyton Watson gets anything done extension-wise before the deadline. I kind of think that one won't happen. But yeah, they take care of Christian Braun. And now, if you're the Nuggets, you go into, at least for the next couple of seasons, Jokic and Gordon and Murray and Brown and Cam Johnson, who they acquired. You've got your starting group, in place, and you feel like, all right, let's move forward. And I think the bench pieces become, I don't want to say completely, replaceable guys, but you'll cycle through the bench guys over the next couple of years and figure out, all right, which young guys pop, which ones don't, which veterans are we going to fill in with vet minimums. But yeah, I mean, this is a Nuggets team. You add 25 million more onto the books for next year. I guess well, look, our guy Scott's all over 21.5 million. Again, see purple on Spot Track. That's an estimate. We always estimate contracts that start low and move up with the standard raise structure, unless the reporting comes in otherwise. But 21.5 million, that's an expensive team going into next season. That kind of tells me Valanciunas, unless this goes great and he's awesome as Jokic's backup, that 10 million bucks probably coming off the books next year. Zeke Naji, good chance he's not on the books, but you've got your starting group in the fold. You'll have Durant Holmes and Julian Strawther, a couple other minimum guys there, and you've got a pretty solid team.
Yeah, I think the Nuggets, obviously one of the favorites to potentially come out of the West. Obviously, OKC is going to be slotted ahead of them, the reigning champs. But Denver's got a really nice group here. Maybe you change out some of the pieces on the periphery, and that's just kind of what happens. Again, we'll see what happens with Peyton Watson. But Braun has done well enough to where you want to keep him around for the long haul. Nikola Jokic has said he wants to be a Denver Nugget for life, and you want to make sure that he's got the pieces around him to go and compete year in and year out. So I think this is a commitment to just that, a commitment to this core group with Denver, and this is what they're going to have moving forward. I love the Cam Johnson trade for them. I think that's going to be a great deal. Valanciunas is, I think, a fantastic backup for Jokic. And, man, I mean, Denver is ready to roll. Denver, they're going to be good. They're going to be really good this year. I'm excited to see them out there on the court.
And with Cam Johnson not quite cutting it in half by bringing him in place of Michael Porter Jr., but it's pretty close to making half what Porter Jr. makes. That allows for then bringing in Christian Braun on this. Yeah. Not bringing him in, but re-signing him on this one. One note before we move off the Nuggets. Jokic and Johnson are both extension eligible as well, veteran extensions. Those deadlines for those guys is the end of the day today, truly end of the day, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And we'll talk about more about this. Nothing's going to get done with Jokic. He already said it won't, right? But he's already said, I still want to be a Nugget forever, like you referenced. And I think what's important to note there with him is that we're going to see it be a position with Jokic of, by waiting to do this next summer, he'll be able to add 5 years to his deal versus 4. And that's probably likely how that'll go together, which will take him through his mid-30s. And then at that point, we'll see, what he decides to do there. But he could only add 4 years this year if he declines, because extensions can run only a max of 5 or 6 years if it's a super max. So he's just in a spot where he can add more years on there by waiting a year. And then Cam Johnson, I think it's just, hey, let's make sure. Let's wait and see. Let's see what it looks like. We've got him under contract for another year. And if things go great this year, we'll talk extension next summer.
Great presenting sponsor for the Front Office Show is Sleeper. If you've ever heard of the Sleeper app, here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. Live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats, plus a news feed. This is so critical for me. Get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams, a real-time chat you can engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA season. So download the #1 sports app today and experience it for yourself. If you can see, I've made a couple of season-long picks there. Some deep cuts. We've got Tyler Warren for the Indianapolis Colts. NFL season is here. I've got him more than 550.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to be a big part of that offense. And then Zach Charbonnet, essentially, I'm saying I don't think that Ken Walker is going to wind up staying healthy all season. I've got him more than 499.5 rushing yards. I think the opportunities will be there for Charbonnet. So click that link in the description down below. Use the promo code CAPSPACE and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, let's go. Actually, while we're talking about it, let's talk about why are there all these different extension deadlines around the NBA? I mean, we talked about even the different times today for these deadlines, and then we also have players who come to terms on new deals with their incumbent clubs. Sometimes June 30th, like right before free agency begins, we see these deals get done. So why do we have all these different extension deadlines?
The different times today, I can only assume, is to make sure people like me can't get a good night's sleep before the season starts one more time. I don't know. I don't have a real answer to that one. Why rookie scale extension deadline is 6 p.m. Eastern. veteran extensions is 11.59, other than that's what it is. But in the case of, so let's use Jokic as an example. Players who have more than 1 year remaining on their contract, so they're not on an expiring deal, those players can extend through today. If you have an additional year left, that's it. You have to wait then. You if you don't get an extension done today, can't get one done in season. But there's one exception to that, because of course there is, because there always is. If that second season remaining is an option year, a true option year, a player option or a team option, then you can decline that, which turns your current contract into an expiring deal. And then you're allowed to extend off that. Players who are extension eligible with only 1 year remaining on their contract, they're extension eligible all the way through June 30th. So those guys, the guys with the options, that can still get done. One guy to kind of keep an eye on is Trae Young. With that, he has that player option. It doesn't sound like anything's happening today, but let's say the Hawks are going great and everything looks awesome. And they're like, we got to keep Trae Young in the fold too. They could decline he would decline his player option. They work out an extension all the way through June 30th. So that's where the different type of extensions. I put out lists of the guys who are eligible like today. And if they don't get something done, that comes off. We also have an article up on Spot Track that lists all of the veteran extension candidates, the guys who will be eligible through the 30th, the guys with that option situation, and then all the guys that have to get it done by tonight. So if you're interested on that, you can find that right on the main page at Spot Track.
So, for example, I know we have a lot of Lakers fans that will check in here. Like Rui Hachimura is on an expiring contract. He is extension eligible. In theory, they could extend him all the way up until June 30th if they wanted to.
Yep. Yeah. And it's June 30th that we get into that weird spot where sometimes news comes out, and you were talking about, let's say the Lakers are like, hey, Rui Hachimura has agreed to a 2-year, $80 million contract. $40 million is too much. 2 years, $60 million contract. That's probably even too much for some Lakers fans. But anyway,
absolutely.
We would be like, all right, is this an extension or is this a truly new contract? Is it going there? Because June 30th is the final day of the season, and guys who are going to be free agents. And now that free agency negotiations open at 6 p.m. Eastern, there's about that 6-hour overlapping window. For 99.9% of fans, they don't care. They're just Rui Hachimura is on, still on the Lakers for this contract. For people like me, we do care, because then it matters the next time he's eligible to extend and those kind of things. But yeah, we're in a spot where right now there's a lot of stuff getting done, but then there are, another handful of guys, 20 to 30 guys that will be eligible all the way through there. I did have someone ask why someone like Tobias Harris is not extension eligible.
Mm-hmm.
And Tobias Harris is not extension eligible because he only signed a 2-year contract with the Pistons, and 2-year contracts can't be extended. Contracts have to be a minimum of 3 years in length. And then that's when, after 2 years, you can extend again. If it's 3 years in length, or 4 years, if it's 5 or 6 year total contracts, then it's after 3 years that you can extend. So just a little clarification on those.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Again, as always, lots of rules for us to get into there.
We got you covered, though. If you have questions, just reach out and I'll do my best to answer them.
All right, let's jump over to this. We're going to go Dyson Daniels got an extension done. Maybe a little bit of a surprise. We had heard he was far apart with the Atlanta Hawks, but ultimately, again, teams not wanting to pass that $25 million per year average annual value. Dyson Daniels took the deal. And, there were some reports that he was looking for up to $150 million. He winds up on a 4-year, $100 million rookie contract extension with the Hawks. I think this is pretty good value for Atlanta for the best nickname in the NBA, the Great Barrier Thief himself, the steals leader, especially if that three-point shooting does come around. This will be, pun intended, this will be a steal for Atlanta.
Yeah, it's even if it doesn't, I think this is perfectly fair value. I had him at 5,125, so it came in right at $25 million average annual value. This one, look for this to potentially be flat as well. The Hawks did that with Jalen Johnson's extension where they went $30 million. The only reason why I hesitate to say that is 25 million might not be exactly enough to extend him next time around if they want to go in a little bit of a different direction. So we're in a spot where it is, let's see, how that kind of comes together as far as the actual structure on this. But I think 25 million a year for Dyson Daniels is a perfectly fair contract. Now you've got him, Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Onyeka Okongwu all locked up. Kristaps Porzingis, we talked about it last week, said, let's see how this year goes in Atlanta. And then Trae Young and the Hawks seem to be a part, at least for now, but we already talked about why that could still be a negotiation that goes a little bit longer on this one. And then, lest I forget, Zachary Risache is also still on his rookie deal for a couple more years after this one. So Hawks' young core is in place, and I think getting Daniels for 25 million average annual value, really solid work.
So you're talking about if they would look to extend him in a few years, that you could only do what 140% of the off of 25 million may not be, especially if he does become, he'll be what 25 at that point.
Yeah.
And if the 3-point shooting comes, he could be one of the bright lights in the NBA,
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you're right. 140% bump off of 25 million may not be enough compared to what he could get. So that makes some sense. But maybe they want a truly escalating contract there to bump that number up as high as possible.
Yeah, that would put him around 37 million, and that would be well below his max. And if he's anywhere near that in the middle of what would be his prime years, that's just not enough. So maybe they want to bump it up to what we have displayed on Spot Track, which is up to almost 27 and a half, we'll call it. That's just a little bit more. This is our sister channel, Lakers Nation. We did a long breakdown on Austin Reeves and why he's not extending because his contract is too low to extend off of. Right now, it's more money, but it's the same thought process here with Daniel. So we'll see how it comes in once it's actually done, and we have the details on it. But I think no matter what the structure is, this is really good work by Atlanta. I think Daniels he'll return this without a doubt.
Speaking of good work, Keith, you know who did some good work?
Yeah.
The Portland Trailblazers. My goodness. And we'll start with the Shaedon Sharpe extension here. 4 years, 90 million. So you had Dyson Daniels got 4 years, 100, 5 for 125 for Christian Braun. And now you've got Shaedon Sharpe, 4-year, $90 million contract extension. Young, hyper athletic player, exciting, one of the exciting young players in the NBA. Maybe doesn't get enough attention paid to him because, in part, because he's with a Portland team that struggled a bit over the years. But I think this is a phenomenal value. Not as good as the value they got on the next guy we're going to talk about here, but still, this is phenomenal value, I think, for the Blazers to get Shaedon Sharpe at this number.
Yeah, I'm with you. 22.5 million is great. I mean, it's funny because I'm seeing some of the reaction on social media to whether it be Christian Braun or Dyson Daniels. And I saw this last night with Shaedon Sharpe is people are like, man, almost, 20, in the case of the other two, 25 million, or Sharpe, like 22.5 million and, almost, $90 million. Here's the thing. Shaedon Sharpe, if you look, Trevor pulling it up, if you're following with us on YouTube, this is coming in at 13% of the cap or less. Yeah. If Shaedon Sharpe is just exactly what he is right now, and I highly encourage people, go look at what he did offensively last year in kind of a messy season as a 21-year-old, still really good. This would be fine. Like you'd be like, okay, that's good enough money for a guy who's a nice scoring guard as a starter on a team that's gonna be okay. So 13% of the cap and less is really good value. It's no issues at all. I had him higher. I had him at 4/112. So this came in 22 million less than what I thought. But in talking to some people, there were questions from the Portland side of he hasn't fully put it together yet. Where do we want this to go? And they felt like, hey, this is where we want to be. We like this core. In part because it was a guy we're going to talk about next, also got his extension done, and there's Scoot Henderson, Donovan Clingan, and Young Han Soon for the for the young group that Shaden Sharp just wanted to continue to be a part of it.
Is it Young Hansoon?
Yeah, that's how you
I've been
say it.
saying Hanson.
Yeah, it's Hansoon. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, good. There we go. See, we're learning a lot this episode. I've been mispronouncing it.
And I might be a little bit off, but it's definitely it's not Hanson like he was, our next door neighbor here in the US growing up. It's Hansoon.
Like he was singing Bop.
Yeah. Do-wop. Skibby www. Yeah.
Now it's going to be stuck in my head all day. Oh no.
And everybody just shut off the show. So thanks everyone.
19 points per game last season for Shaden Sharp. I'm rounding up to get there, but still really good stuff from him. 4.5 rebounds, 3 assists. The 3-point shooting could improve, but I think there's look, it's a good deal for the Blazers. I think this is one that is a very likely one to pay off in a big way for them. But this was the one that I really loved, Keith. This may be my favorite extension so far. Toumani Camara, 4-year, $82 million extension with the Blazers. Legitimately one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA.
Yep.
And you got him at an absolute bargain. I mean, that's less than $20 million.
20.5 million.
20.5, sorry, per year average annual value. Man, this is a great deal for the Blazers. That's why I look at the Blazers and say they did great work on the Shaden Sharp extension, and this I think is right there. This looks amazing to get Camara at that number.
Well, and it's so funny. You have the Blazers sheet up, but he makes so little this year. He's not even on there.
Not even on it.
You got to scroll down to there he is.
And what's crazy is it's non-guaranteed.
Yeah, which now that will become guaranteed. I think he officially signed earlier today, so that in order to sign the extension, that has to become guaranteed. So, but. Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking if this is a structure. And again, remember, we want that last year to be as high as possible in this case because we want them to be extendable again. So I think this is the structure we'll see on this. That puts him in there at less than 12% of the cap for each year. Toumani Camara, if people have not watched, and some people maybe haven't because on the East Coast, play a lot of 10:30 tips out there in Portland. It's late games. This guy was a second team all defense player. You could have argued he should have been on the first team. He can literally defend all 5 positions. He's one of the best, most versatile defenders in the league. Really good on wings, especially bigger wings. And his offense is coming around. He's really starting to shoot it more, starting to showing off the dribble game. So I'm super excited about Toumani Camara. And Portland, we've had some questions about some of the other things they've done, some of the trades they've made and the like. But these 2 pieces of work are really good, solid work to keep 2 really important parts of your young core together and to get them on value deals like this. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I love the value that they got. Next year, you'll have Damian Lillard coming back and hopefully healthy. You still have Drew Holiday. Portland, I think they're going to surprise some people this season. And then next season, when you get Dame back in the fold and some of these young guys have another year under their belt, Donovan Clingan is now like solidified in that starting spot and everything. They're certainly a team on the rise. And I think things are pivoting very quickly for this Blazers side. And part of it is the ascension of Shaden Sharp and Toumani Camara, certainly. What's crazy is I look at what the Blazers really got out of the deal where they landed DeAndre Ayton in that trade with Phoenix Suns was Toumani Camara. Like that was ended up being the most important piece for the Blazers in the deal.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. And they got Drew Holiday back again, so that's works out too there. So, but yeah, it's I mean, Toumani Camara is he's really good. Like really, really good. And I hopefully people will start to really fully realize, because I did see a little bit of like that much for this guy. And that tells me like people just haven't been watching.
It's for a guy like him. And this is true of a lot of kind of the 3-and-D archetype players. But you look at Toumani Camara, all right, 11 points per game, 6 boards. People are going to see that and they're going to go, what? Shouldn't he should be a 20-point per game scorer or whatever. Well, scoring is not everything. What he brings defensively is so good. And he does it while shooting 38% from 3. I'm rounding up to get there, but still 37.5% from 3, 1.5 steals per game, 0.6 blocks at his position. He's doing a really nice job there. Yeah. So what he brings defensively doesn't always, when we look at the rotations players make on the defensive side of the ball, we look at the stability they bring there just by making sure they're in the right spots at the right time, the versatility, the value that offers for a coaching staff in order to Frankenstein together different lineups. He can be a connecting piece across a lot of different defensive style units. That all has a lot of value. And that's not stuff. None of that is stuff that will necessarily show up on a traditional box score. So it's important that we recognize that players provide value beyond just points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. Not to say he doesn't do any of that stuff, but where he really provides value doesn't show up on a traditional box score. And if you watch him play, you dig a little deeper, he is well worth this, if not significantly more. Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, let's be very clear too. Portland got him for less than the max they could have offered him because he only makes $2.2 million. His extension number would have been based off the average salary, which the estimated average salary, 140% of that. So it could have started around 19 million and gone up to about 87 million. Not a whole lot less, about 5 million, about $1 million a year less. But still, I mean, when you're looking at where this Blazers team is kind of and could be headed salary wise, it's important. You got to start saving every dollar where you can. Otherwise, you're going to run yourself into, all right, now we're dealing with the aprons and a big tax bill and all these other things that they probably just don't really want to be having to handle just yet. It's one thing if we're a couple years in and it's like, man, these guys all popped and we're a title contender. Then that's what comes with the territory of contending for a title. When you live in that neighborhood, you got to pay for it. But the reality is right now, we could probably hold off in having these guys on these value deals. That's just going to help build out the rest of that roster even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So some great work there by Portland. Keith, before we leave the extensions, because we have some injury stuff to get into, we'll talk about teams finalizing their rosters. We'll get to all that. But we're seeing now teams not want to pass that 25 million per season average annual value threshold. Are teams really using the threat of restricted free agency in order to get players at this number? Because for some of these guys like Dyson Daniels, had he not come up with an extension, well, the Hawks have the protection of he would be a restricted free agent next summer. We're seeing a similar situation with Walker Kessler with the Utah Jazz. There's been talk about how they are unlikely, and who knows, the clock is still ticking. Maybe we've had plenty of players before where they're considered to be unlikely to do an extension, and then lo and behold, suddenly, boom, the deal gets done. And Dyson Daniels, I think, is another example of that, where he wants 150 million. These NBA teams now have the opportunity to tell the player, hey, look, we want you on a deal that we think is going to be team friendly. If not, we're not worried about losing you in restricted free agency, because look how it worked out for guys like Jonathan Kuminga. Look how it worked out for Josh Giddey. It was not a fun place for those guys to be.
Cam Thomas and Quentin Grimes had to sign the qualifying offers.
Exactly. So is this the reason why we're seeing these guys sign these deals? And we're talking about how great the value is for Atlanta, how great the value is for Portland and these teams. How much of this is just restricted free agency is not an ideal place to land. And that's where all these guys are going. So they figure, you know what, might as well just get this done now, even if I'm taking a little bit less than what I think I'm actually worth.
Yeah, over the weekend and this morning, I had a lot of conversations with people around the league. So front offices, agents, and the like. And that was a discussion point. And in some cases, some said, yeah, I mean, restricted free agency is such a hammer to hold over players and opposing teams of, hey, you want the guy? Great. Tie up your cap space, because you're going to have to make him the offer June 30th when negotiations open, but you can't actually give them the offer sheet till the moratorium lifts. Now we're a week into free agency and you've tied up all your cap space. So good luck to you, because we'll just match it unless you get crazy. So that's part one. And then part two is for the player, it's finding a team that's willing to do that. Now, I did have a couple agents who, I mean, this is part of how the game is played, kind of fire back with, yeah, except for there's actual teams with cap space next summer.
Correct.
I will have an article that comes out on Spot Track tomorrow that is our first look at the spending power in the summer of 2026. So you get a sense of, as the year goes along, and we're talking about this many teams have cap space and this and that and all those
Mhm.
things, you'll be able to have something to refer back to, at least as a starting point. But we're going to have somewhere between 6 and maybe 8, 10 teams with cap space available. And what will happen in those cases is they may be a little bit more willing to play in the restricted free agent game, because it might be, hey, the way for us to get that guy that we really feel like can be the guy to push us over the top is let's kind of go there. So I think that is where they're gonna, kind of push forward with that, and that might be where that goes. So I think, but you're right. Teams they're just being more cautious in general. What does Brian Windhorst, right, in the Hoop Collective call it? The fun max. Yeah, guys like Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, those are no-brainer maxes. You give them out, you don't even think twice.
Right.
You're good.
That's
but
like
a guy
25%
like
max.
Yeah, exactly. But a guy like Dyson Daniels, you're like, yeah. Where if we go back 3-4 years ago, team might have been like, yeah, just give him 25%. Just go. Saving that 5% of the cap is not a big enough deal for us. Let's just kind of go. And that's where, all right, we're just gonna kind of move it forward. So yeah.
I think one of the things, though, and I get why agents would push back and say, well, but there's cap space this summer, so maybe restricted free agency won't be as inhospitable as it's been in the past. But I think fundamentally there's a problem with that thinking, and that's simply that teams, as we said, teams are being more cautious now. And what that means is that teams are really are prioritizing not having bad money on their books, negative value contracts on their books. Teams do not want that. We're seeing teams that are paying to move off of salary when they need to. Negative value contracts are I think a more destructive thing than ever to have on your roster right now. And so with that being the case in this cap environment, typically the way you're going to get a guy in restricted free agency is either you have to be right and believe that the incumbent team completely undervalues the player and doesn't see something that you do, or you want the guy bad enough to give him a contract that effectively is a bad deal, right? Is more money, because otherwise, if it's a good value deal, the incumbent team is just going to match and say, thank you very much for doing the negotiating for us. So
unless you have them in like a position where it's going to be so hard on them, cap, apron, tax wise or whatever. Sure. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the rule in restricted free agency. You have to be willing to overpay and sometimes go all as far as you can to the max with a player option, with the trade bonus, with upfront payments, all the things you can do. I always say all the bells and whistles to try to encourage the other team not to match. But you're right. If the other team's like, all right, he's worth it. Thanks. You did the negotiation for us. Now we match and off we go.
Well, and that's why I wouldn't be so quick to jump to, well, there's cap space out there. That may not matter if teams are concerned with overpaying and, free agent X. Yeah, I know I'm going to have to overpay to get the incumbent club to blink and let him go. Then you're going to wind up with a bad money deal on your books. And that's okay if you think he's the final piece that puts you over the top. But again, teams in general, they're more focused on preserving flexibility. So I don't know that more cap space out there necessarily dramatically changes the fortunes of restricted free agents next summer.
Yeah. And it is hard, right? For some of the Tumani Kamara made, I'm gonna round it, but about $8 million in his first few years in the league. I mean, sure, I'll take it, but in NBA terms, that's nothing. Like, he made nothing in his first few years. I might even be a little high. It might be closer to 6 or 7. So when you throw $82 million in front of him, that is generational money for him and his family.
Absolutely.
And they are now set, provided they're smart with their money, for life. And that is, all right, that's part of it too. It's very hard. Like, I know agents have talked about this in some even openly. We had some tell some stories at Sports Business Classroom. Like, it's really hard to tell a guy turn down $100 million because there's going to be more for you. And then that's why when there isn't, we see guys fire their agent. They go with somebody else, or things get a little sideways with this stuff. So it's just, you got to be in a spot where you got to know and read your market right, trust the player. We always say it sounds awesome to say players betting on himself. And it's great when that pays off. Like, when that pays off,
always.
We celebrate it, but it doesn't always. And that's where it gets really hard. And that's why sometimes guys just, all right, this is the money that's in front of me. There may not be more by delaying until after the season. And that's without even factoring in, what if I blow out my knee next week? Like, what if I just have an absolutely awful season and everything falls apart around me here and all those things that can happen before you even get there? You may have a perfectly good season and the money may not be there. And that's the challenge. So yeah, I think teams are getting more cautious, and I think players and agents are a little more willing to say, all right, we don't need to squeeze every last dime. If you try to lowball, if you tried to lowball Paulo Banchero, they're going to say no. Like, give me the max and go. But in each given class, there's 3-4 of those guys maybe. And they already got taken care of. They were done in July. Now we're into the rest of the guys who just they're not bad, but they're not max guys. They slot in between, which is where the vast majority of the league lives.
If there's a chasm between what the team feels the player is worth and what the player feels they're worth, that's okay. A deal's probably not getting done there. Like Cam Thomas being a great example of that. But if it's anywhere close, I think we're seeing, Josh Giddey wanted 30 and he wound up getting 25. Like the guys are going, well, you know what, $5 million, that's not worth me risking. I'd rather have the peace of mind than risk I hurt my knee or something mid-season, and then I don't have this big contract. The top tier max guys we've seen, they're going to get their money. Like Kevin Durant got a max deal with a torn Achilles, right? Like guys are going to get the top tier, the best of the best. They don't have as much of an injury risk or a concern about that type of stuff because they are so rare for those true superstars. It's that next class below where I think they have to be, as teams are getting more risk averse in today's NBA, those players are also responding in kind and becoming more risk averse and just taking deals, because that's a lot of money to turn down. And there's no guarantee that money will be there again next year. Maybe you have a great season and it winds up being, and you can get more, but how much more do you think you're going to get for it to be worth it? It's just a risk reward analysis that you've got to, each guy is going to have to really figure out.
Let me say one more thing on this topic. I'm glad you kind of took us on this little side quest because this was good. I think let's remember these contracts: Christian Braun, Dyson Daniels, Shaedon Sharpe, Toumani Camara. Next summer, when everybody's saying the middle class is dead, like guys only get the max or the minimum. Guys get middle class deals. They just get them now. They're getting them now in extensions versus necessarily in free agency. There's not a lot of guys getting $20 to $25 million a year in free agency because it's just generally not how things are working. But they're still getting those middle class contracts in the NBA. They're just getting them ahead of time. Teams are taking care of it early. Players are taking that money versus, let's play a game and wait. Because like you said with Dyson Daniels, he could have held out for $5 million more, but is that worth it? Or do you want $100 million? You got $100 million, $25 million annual. Let's go. We're
I don't
good.
blame. I'd be taking the money. I would be doing it.
Yeah, I probably would.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah, and it's different if it's contract number 3 and you've now, hey,
you've already made that.
I've made some money and I feel like this is what I'm owed. I have a little bit of a different perspective then. But for these guys who, again, I mean, they've made more than we'll ever make. But
what do you mean? The show is blowing up. Come on.
That's true. Yeah, keep it going. Hey, just a reminder: if you want to see us dress up like morons on Halloween, you need to subscribe to the show. Hit that subscribe button, and you may get us in Halloween costumes. But it is it's all relative, and in relative terms, these guys haven't made a lot, especially a guy like Christian Braun, drafted late. Toumani Camara was on a second-round pick exception deal. Those guys getting paid, I'm never going to fault them for taking care of it now. And they're all young enough where, all right, you know what? I'll get paid this now, and then I'll really cash in on my third contract. And that's a good way to look at it too.
Yeah, I think that if you have already made, let's say you've already had a $150 million contract in the NBA, whatever it is, you're one of those guys and you're, 29, you're 30, you're looking at your second contract, your third contract, is getting another $150 million deal versus getting a, let's call it $125 million deal. Is that extra $25 million when you've already got $100 million in the bank going to significantly change your quality of life? No, it's still 20. It's still a lot
Yeah.
of money,
And it's a
but
status
it's
thing
not.
at that point.
It's a status thing, absolutely. But it's not like if you've made 8 million over your whole career, like the Tamani Kamara situation, and suddenly you've got 80 million in front of you, your life changes, right? And so I think it's important that we remember that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, this was a really good conversation. Good railroading there to get us.
We just took a little detour, but
nothing wrong with that. Side
absolutely.
quests will make those games fun.
We took the scenic route. That's what we did. That's what we did. Okay. Let's go here. Teams are finalizing their rosters. We've got the season starting up tomorrow. So teams around the NBA finalizing their rosters right now and getting all that locked in. That's why you've seen so many moves. We talked about the G League related moves in terms of guys getting signed. Mac McClung getting signed and then waived like 3 hours later. And stuff like that.
Can we pause on that one just for a second? So that got picked up because I think I was the one who, the Bulls announced it, but I tweeted out the Bulls have waived Mac McClung. And there were a lot of people who were like, yo, the Bulls waived Mac McClung 3 hours after signing him per Keith Smith. I mean, yeah, in theory, I guess. But then that got into a lot of people coming at me saying, do you not understand? Trust me. And I didn't tweet it that way. I did not tweet 3 hours after signing him, they waived him. Just want to clear that up for anybody wondering. I think people, I'm clearing it up for our audience who knows. I don't talk about players that way. I don't laugh at guys for getting waived because I'm never going to play in the NBA or sign a contract.
But it's not even a negative thing.
Yeah, it's just a process. That's all it is. It's just how it works. But yeah, there were hundreds of these moves made. The Knicks made, I think it was 5 signings. And it was sign a guy, waive that guy, sign a new guy, waive that guy. Just bing, bing, bing throughout the night.
You have to jump through. It's not even like, oh, that guy did something wrong. No, this is just the process of getting the guy to the G League club. That's it.
So 5 p.m. Eastern today, teams have to finalize rosters for opening night. When we say finalize rosters for opening night, it's truly for opening night. They can make a change tomorrow if they want to and switch things up. This is just the last. You got to have everything lined up. You can't be carrying more than 15 players on standard deals and 18 guys in total with your 3 two-way spots filled and all those things. So we're just in a spot where a lot of movement to come. There's one more move. I don't know if while we've been recording, if the Bucks have waived Tyler Smith or not, but they were trying. Mike Scotto was all over this from Hoopside. They're trying to trade him before waiving him and just eating his contract. But those are the things that were going on over the weekend with that. And that's why you were seeing all these guys signed, waived, some guys just waived and all that. But we'll go here. We had 5 guys from Exhibit 9 and 10 contracts make opening night rosters. We also had an additional 8 players converted to two-way deals that were on camp deals. So that's 13 guys making rosters that weren't necessarily lined up to make it. And that's pretty cool to see that those guys went to camp. Probably the highest profile guy is Amir Coffey with the Bucks. Player that I know we both like and seemed a little strange. He was only on a camp deal to begin with, but he earned a spot on the Bucks. That's why they're going to move on from Tyler Smith. But Landry Shamet, Mohamed Diawara with the Knicks. Diawara's one's a little more funky because he'll count as his rookie minimum versus being counting towards the apron as the 2-year minimum. So that allows the Knicks to stay under their second apron hard cap while filling out their roster. The Knicks I did the math for all these teams, including your Lakers. I put a tweet out yesterday that has what day, as of right now, they can fill their final spot under the hard cap. The Knicks, it's April 2nd. So with 11 days left in the season and 5 games to play is when they can actually sign a player and fill out that 15th spot. Now, if they make a move before then and waive a guy who counts a little less or something, or they move on in a trade where they bring in less money, that could free up a spot earlier. Bismack Biyombo, old friend Bismack Biyombo, made the San Antonio Spurs roster out of camp. And then Jaden Springer, probably the biggest surprise one, made the New Orleans Pelicans roster off one of these contracts. So congratulations to those guys. We just talked about all the reasons. It's not easy to make an NBA roster, those guys pulled it off and great. And here's the other thing. For those guys who were sign and waive transactions and got to the G League, go to work. Go to work and get yourself back to the league. You'll get yourself to that contract, whether it's through a 10-day, through a two-way. You get called up mid-season on a standard deal, whatever it is, get yourself back to the league, do your work there. And we see every year 10, 15 guys come up from the G League, whether it's through a two-way or through a 10-day or just a straight call up to a standard, who make NBA teams. Sometimes they have major impacts and become rotation guys and even more. So just now the work begins.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, everybody, Exhibit 9, Exhibit 10 contracts, those are, well, they provide a pathway onto the team, but they're typically deals that get earmarked towards the G League and towards getting cut and then brought down to the G League club, especially when we look at Exhibit 10 deals, which provide that bonus. So it really is an accomplishment for guys to make it off of that kind of contract that is really structured to kind of funnel the player towards the G League. To make it off of that contract onto the full roster is it's a big deal, and it's a big accomplishment for a player to do. That means they really stood out.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get into some injury news. Keith, we're going to start with the bad ones here. Kobe White out 2 more weeks, so he will miss the beginning of the season here, dealing with a calf issue for the Chicago Bulls. Yeah,
Bulls have pretty good guard depth, so they should be okay. But it's just a bummer that Kobe White, who's a really good player, really has had a solid year last season. Going to be the starting I don't know, point guard, whatever. Josh Giddey will have the ball a lot too, but he's going to miss a little bit of time. But it sounds like the Bulls aren't going to rush him. He's not going to rush. So sometime, hopefully within the next 2 weeks. I didn't put it on the list, but other Bulls injury update: Zach Collins had a non-displaced fracture in his wrist. He is actually going to miss I think it's 4 weeks to open the season. So the Bulls will be a little bit shorthanded with their a couple veteran guys there out to open the season.
Right. And worth mentioning, Kobe White also, extension eligible right now, probably not going to get a deal done there. We'll wait till free agency next summer, but this is a contract year for him. So obviously he wants to have a big year. Not ideal to start the season off and be on the sidelines and not available.
Yeah. Everything you and I talked about Austin Reeves over on the Lakers Nation channel, and I wrote about, it's all the same stuff with Kobe White. Basically, almost the numbers are almost exactly the same too, because they make almost the same salary.
Speaking of which, Keith, would that be that, just thinking of the cap rules and all of that, in theory, with Austin Reeves on a player option, he could still sign a midseason. I'm not saying he will, he won't, but he could still sign a midseason extension on that $87 million deal if he just declined that player option in order to make himself extension eligible.
Absolutely. Yep. Sure could. Okay,
let's jump over. Keith, I hate this because Memphis, my God.
Jeez.
So many injuries, man. It's just, and I do have good news coming for Memphis. We'll get there in just a moment. I've got some good news, I promise, Grizzlies fans. But Scottie Pippen Jr., out 12 weeks, toe surgery. Zach Edey already out. Brandon Clark already out. Not great. And Scottie Pippen Jr. has been a find for Memphis. They've done a nice job continuing his development and making him an important part of their rotation. And now he's going to be available for, that's the first 3 months of the season that are now gone for SPJ.
Yeah, if you're a fringe agent player who's got guys right on the edges of the NBA and haven't been able to break through, get them to Memphis, because they do a great job developing guys through the G League program and getting them there. G League team is right there too, like right next to the big club. So you're working with them, but just a piece of unsolicited advice there. But yeah, Scottie Pippen Jr., 12 weeks. Somebody pulled up a tweet from basically a year ago, right around the start of last season, referencing he was having left big toe troubles and having trouble pushing off. So that tells you this has been bugging him for a year, which now someone will be like, why didn't you get it done before? Well, he was trying to play, right, for a team that needed him. And now he's going to be out for a while. So that's definitely a bummer for Scottie Pippen Jr. and the Grizzlies, who are without Brandon Clark, without Zach Edey to start the season. But on the good news front, do you want to go there?
Yeah, let's go
John
here.
Morant. looks like he'll play in the season opener. Going to be recovered from that sprained ankle. Jaren Jackson Jr. played at the end of the preseason, so he'll be back. So it's not going to be me and you starting in the front court for the Grizzlies. Unfortunately for us, they will have actual real NBA guys in there. But yeah, I mean, they're whole-ish with their main two stars. So, that's important at least. And again, in the West, you can't lose ground. You don't want to start losing ground in October.
No.
Like, you got to stay in it right from the beginning.
Yeah. So good news there that John Morant is going to be available to play after dealing with that ankle issue. And then one more positive here. Derek Queen cleared for full basketball activities. Yep. We know the Pelicans, I mean, they were in the NBA.com GM poll. They were criticized for making, the least favorite move, I suppose it was, of the
which involved Derek Queen.
Yeah, that involved Derek Queen, them moving up in the draft to get him. They've got a lot invested here in Derek Queen. So the fact that he's been cleared for full basketball activities, that's great news for the Pels.
Yeah, big time. And this is important because you want to be able to show this is why we traded up for this guy. This is why we gave up our unprotected pick for this coming draft in 2026 that Atlanta now owns, which I've heard some people say it's the single best non-player asset in the league. And that might be true. Like, it's going to be up there because, like teams like the Nets, Jazz, and Wizards aren't trading their own first-round picks. So owning another team's pick, that's got to be the best one for now, because even if you're super high on the Pelicans, I know you were a little bit higher on them than I was when we did our season predictions, but you're not like picking them to be a playoff team. So that's another lottery pick that's going to land with Atlanta. So, good for the Hawks there. But Derek Queen's a good player. I get to see him play a lot at Montverde Academy. This kid he's a little funky. He's a little more ground bound for a big, but he is very, very skilled. He can pass, he can handle the ball. I think he'll eventually shoot it regularly from behind the arc. That's probably going to come, but this is important. If you're New Orleans, get him out there. Let's see what he looks like next to Zion, and let's start moving forward. Kevon Looney is out the first 2-3 weeks of the season, so little shorthanded up front. Derek Queen back in there. I don't know if he'll play opening night because he just got cleared over the weekend, so there might be a little bit of a ramp up. But my guess is within a week or so, we'll see Derek Queen.
Yeah, and that's great. So again, missing the beginning, the first few games, but still the ramp up process, and then get him back into that rotation. All right. Keith, as I said, exciting time of year. I was just going through and checking and making sure we didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I was looking at my phone every time it buzzed to see like, we got to play the breaking news drop. And
right, I was just trying to sort through everything and see if anything had gone on. Of course,
we know how it works, Trev. We're gonna sign out, and then we're gonna get hit with like 5 more extensions. So
as soon as we finish up the show, but if that's the way to get deals done around the NBA, then you're welcome, everybody. We'll go ahead and stop recording, and that way all the deals can go ahead and come through. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts as well.
We made it last day of the off season.
Let's go.
Just get through your bedtime tonight. When you wake up, it's Christmas morning tomorrow.
Let's go. More sleep. The NBA is back. Thank you, everybody. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.